talked about. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. I would now request Professor Chetan Vaidya, Director, SPA Delhi, to please address the gathering.
Thank you, Samit. I'm very pleased to be speaking to you on this occasion. I think it's a very good that IA Northern Chapter, along with SPA, along with Alumni Association, with the Haryana chapter and other chapters, is organizing this workshop on this important issue of architectural education. We need to discuss this very important subject. You know, our architecture education in India is at the crossroad. On one hand, as some of you may be already aware, only 2 weeks ago, the Parliament passed a bill to make 3 SPAs National Centers of Excellence. I mean, can you imagine that the Parliament, the MPs are discussing Charles Correa and other architects, Le Corbusier, and even unknown architects, and how their education should take place. I mean, MPs were talking about architecture education, and they fully supported passing of this bill. I think it's a very good achievement for all of us when the Parliament passes a bill. On the other hand, I mean, this is one story, that the government is fully with the sector. On the other hand, we have so many colleges where infrastructure and other facilities are lacking. And one thing is missing everywhere, including my own college of SPAs, the teachers. I think this was mentioned earlier. I mean, we have always lack of teachers in architecture education, and that is something should be a matter of great concern. And Ashutosh mentioned about how this will affect he made him think about cut and blood and something like that. But we need to have first aid for all those things which is happening in here. Now, we need to work at different levels, I think. One is obviously architecture education, but some of the solutions which doesn't lie in the colleges itself. We were very fortunate to have an Architects Act in 1972, and it has performed quite well. And as most of you are aware, the ministry has set up a committee where the act is being reviewed, amendments are being suggested. One problem which I think most important is we have only protected the architect title. We did not protect the architectural services. And ours is the only act which doesn't protect the services. So it's very important that we as individual, we as group, we make the services defined in the act. It is very important. I think without that, protecting architect title is not enough. It was good in 1972, but not today. We need to define the services and protect the services also. So that is at the national level. Then we need to ask ourselves different questions. What is that we want? Whom do we want to regulate education institutes? Is it COA? Is it the right institute? I think that's also a question, may not be in this forum, but that is also a question which we need to ask. Because now the whole idea in the education sector is somebody makes the rules, somebody else inspects, somebody else gives the accreditation. Now there is separate accreditation, somebody else aggregates the courses. So do you want everything to happen in COA? This is also one of the questions we need to discuss. At least start talking about it. I'm not saying we'll have answers in one day. But the feeling today is they make the minimum standards, they make the program, they regulate, they aggregate, they say that you are not good enough. I mean, is it correct? I mean, that is something we need to think about. And similarly, in teaching of architecture, we need a lot of changes, even at the college level. I still believe, though I studied long ago, I studied when the T-squares were being used, not even parallels. But I think the design studio and building construction are extremely important part of our education. Whenever I meet, and I meet a lot of engineering academicians, I tell them that what we do is our studios. So first question they ask me, what is this studio, Chetan, you're talking about? They think studio means film ka studio. For them to understand that our studio is our lab, that message has go to him. And that is something, first we have to realize that this is our lab. We have been doing studios from day one and we just accept it as a reality. But the world outside doesn't understand what is the importance of studio. And second thing is, we'll have to go beyond our traditional building design things. We'll have to talk about green buildings, we'll have to talk about energy saving, but most importantly, bring in information technology as an integrated part of the education courses. And in this regard, we need to be part of the government programs. Now, government is talking of smart cities, it is talking about sustainable cities, it is talking about inclusive cities. How, as architects, we could become a part of it, unless we become part of their program. And Abhijit Ray was just mentioning me when I started that we need to define our way of smart cities. We could have different opinions, but if we want to be part of the government program, we'll have to do that. And bringing communication technology into our courses, into our education, into our services is going to be, because that is going to be the fourth infrastructure for the time being. We also need to teach communication skills to our students. I think even when they are good designers, we are not able to communicate, which is extremely important point. And we must do research in building and urban design. But the research is not for publishing in a journal, which is read by a few people, intellectuals. I'm not talking of that publication. Publication or our research should become an input to our design studio and construction studio. And that is which is going to be extremely difficult. We also need to think beyond studio and lab. You need to think of an app. How can you use this? So many millions of smart mobiles, how can you use in architecture education? And I will give you just one example. One day for some reason, I told my industrial design people to take toilets as a design problem. I mean, it sounds so simple. This was before the Clean India campaign was launched by the Prime Minister. I said, why don't you design toilets? And when they did the research and the students did a lot of options, you will not believe it, this design studio outputs became very important element for this department, that department. And Bill Gates Foundation invited them to exhibit their work along with some 300 inventors from all over the world on reinventing the toilet. There is a magazine called Urban Sanitation. That magazine gave an award to the students on their output. And today, 3 projects have come to the department just on designing toilets. You know, what is important to understand, there are hundreds of people who are working on technology for toilets. Every IIT, every NIT, somebody is all working on technology of toilets. But there is nobody who is working on design of toilets. And that is where we make a point. And this is true for all of us. And I will strongly recommend that IA and CO should have a separate capacity development program for the Faculty of Architecture. We need to encourage private practice in our colleges, and we ourselves have a problem in SP of encouraging private, but we'll have to find out a way out. It's not just the money which the private practice bring in. I think the whole idea of practical work being done by the faculty and students is extremely important. How to do it, there are issues. There are issues of conflict which we need to work out. And once again, I would like to congratulate the organizers for getting so many people on a morning, like cold morning like this. Generally, it is believed that architects don't come unless there is khana pina. I think you know what I mean by pina. वो आते नहीं है सर, वो पीना नहीं होगा तो आते नहीं है. मेरे कॉलेज में अगर कुछ करोगे तो होगा नहीं. But that is not true. If we have contained, all the people will come. I think, of course, we want to party after doing good work, after having good discussion. But I think if there is a good subject, if there is good research input, people will come. And that is one example. You see, you have been able to collect, and there are people who professionally extremely well. I don't want to mention anybody. Everybody's time have pressed for time, but still they are here this morning. That shows that if you have good content, people will come. And what we lack is a platform for our architecture teachers to meet each other and to exchange each other. I think you have started a very good platform, this chai, coffee architecture, where we are discussing, whatever it is, that subject, at least we start discussing. I think give a platform to our faculty of architectures all over if you can start with Northern chapter or Haryana chapter, whatever it is, and we give them, how do they interact with each other? How could faculty of architecture could meet each other? And it's not necessary that they have to physically come together. I think now in the days of Twitter and Facebook and WhatsApp, and I don't know, there may be many other things which I even don't know. Where the Prime Minister can have a Twitter, why not our faculty could tweet and talk to each other? I mean, I was just in Intac recently last week, and they said if your architecture faculty wants to organize anything with getting heritage into architecture education, we will be willing to support it, fund it, use our conference room. We are going to give you services. We are going to give you input. So they are willing to do that. Similarly, I think for construction, there will be many people, many manufacturers will be willing to support, give what the technology is, just that we have to get that platform together. I think these are my very stray talks on architecture education for consideration of the workshop. I once again congratulate the organizer. I thank each one of you. I'm also one of the organizers. So I thank each one of you to come here and I think spend more time on this. Is a very serious subject, and we should all come out. At the end of the day, we should come out with, and I strongly recommend it. Please